Okay, usually I talk about the RAID network. Today I want to present you another project that we're working on at Brainbot Technologies. It's called the Trustline network. And it's basically the original Ripple idea built on Ethereum. So when I first got in touch with blockchain technology, I was amazed by the idea that we could organize payments on a decentralized technology, that we would not need to rely on banks anymore. And then I joined the Ethereum project. And at some point we noticed, or I noticed, was kind of obvious, it doesn't scale to real-world payments. And that's when we started the Raiden project to scale out token transfer capacity. And while developing this, we asked ourselves, if we manage to scale out token transfer capacity, will we then see a significant shift of everyday payments to the blockchain technology? And we concluded no, because the properties of these crypto tokens, these virtual commodity mined tokens that we use on the blockchain, are not good for everyday payments because the usability is kind of bad. It feels like prepaid vouchers that you use for payments, because you have to have a bank account in the first place to send money to an exchange, which you then exchange for crypto tokens, which you then can use for payments. It's not such a good user experience that we think that would really catch on at some point. And then we thought about how could we fix this, and we didn't have to look too far, and we rediscovered the original Ripple idea. I'm saying the original Ripple idea because that's not what the company Ripple nowadays is doing. For those of you who don't know the idea, we'll run you briefly through it. So the foundation of the idea is that the assumption that all of us have friends and existing trust relationships. And most likely, you would lend money to most of your friends, up to a certain amount, no question asked. If someone comes to you, one of your friends says, hey, can you ask me 50 euros? You would say yes. And based on this foundation, with some technology, what you can do is then have a chain or a path of trust relationships and chain them to have payments between participants in a network who don't know each other. So let's look at the basic setup. What's in the agreement? We call this bilateral agreement a trust line. Alice says, hey, Bob, I would always lend you $10. And Bob says the same to Alice. Yes, I would also always lend you $12. And now if Alice pays Bob $5, what happened is she now owes $5 to Bob. At the same time, she now, from the credit line of $10 that Bob gave her, she has only $5 left. So now she can only spend $5 more direction Bob, while Bob can spend $15 direction Alice, like the $5 that she owes him, as well as the $10 that he has additional credit line with her. And what happened is if Alice spends $5 is, at that moment, we create money. Before that, there was just credit lines. Now there's an imbalance. Alice owes something to him. That's where money is created. And that's, in the real world, an IOU. Alice owes him $5 now. So now, how can we use that to have payments between people who don't know each other? In this case, Alice wants to pay Charlie, and they don't have a trust line. They're strangers. So what you can do is you can look at the network of trust lines, and maybe you find a path between Alice and Charlie. In this case, there's Bob in the middle. What you can do then is Alice can send $5 to Bob and ask him to please pass it on. And what happened now is that Charlie received $5 from Bob. That is, he knows that Bob owes him $5. It's like receiving a payment. That's good for him. And for Bob, it is that Alice owes him $5 and he owes $5 to Charlie. So that's like zero in the middle. He doesn't care. He's happy to help here. And that's basically it. That's how you can have payments between strangers on a network of trust relationships. So you might say, okay, that's a bit clumsy because now they need to meet in the real world to settle this $5 debt. But that's not really necessary because, say there's Dave, and Dave wants to pay Bob for some service. Then he can send a payment. And what you see here is that this imbalance between Bob and Charlie vanishes. So we have debt cancellation, money circulates in the system if we have multiple users. And in the real world, most likely, you don't need to settle. So another question you might have is, what happens if the trust relationship between Alice and Bob vanishes? Alice doesn't like Bob anymore. So what she can do here is she can, and Bob is indebted to her. She doesn't like that. So she can do is send a payment to herself via a third party, this case Ed. So now Bob is indebted to Ed instead, and Ed is indebted to Alice instead of Bob being indebted to Alice. And now she can close the trust line, or at least reduce the credit line given within that trust line. You might also think, okay, can I game the system by creating many accounts, or at least some, and giving within that account, giving myself huge credit lines? And it does not work because it's not a fungible token that we have in these trust lines. You cannot send this around. The money or the debt only exists within individual trust relationships. So at some point, Eve needs to connect to the rest of the network to do a payment. And there's a user, say here Alice, and she set a credit limit of at most $10 in this case. That is the most that Eve can spend, independent of what credit line limits she has given herself with her sock puppets. Yeah, so that's the basic Ripple idea. One question would be, is that money? There's a guy called Bernard Liater. He is like one of the greatest advocates of complementary currencies. He would say, yes, that's money, because basically money is whatever a community agrees on to use as a medium of exchange. And if we look into the textbook, it also has properties that we expect from money. It's a unit of account. Yes, we're doing accounting here. It's a medium of exchange. Yes, we can do payments. And is it a store of value? Yes, we can receive a payment now and use the indebtedness of a friend to pay for something later in time. And it's also money in the sense, if we compare this with the banking system and how banks create money nowadays, 97% of the bank, well, it's what the Bank of England says, of the money created is created this way, that banks give out loans. And banks between each other also have a set of credit lines that if you are a client to a bank, basically, if you deposit money with a bank, you're giving a credit line to the bank. Right? You allow them to be indebted to you, and the other way around. Only that the banks are the center, and ordinary users are at the edges of such a network. And this guy thinks, yes, we need banking, but we don't need banks anymore. And that was in 1994. More questions that you might have is, how does money get in and out of the system? Actually, it doesn't have to. You don't have to deposit money in the system to make it work. But you can. You can go to any participant and offer him to give him 50 euros if he credits these 50 euros to you on the network. After that, he has 50 euros cash. You have 50 euros good with one of your friends. Or the other way around, you go up to one of the participants, say, hey, give me 100 euros. And he will say, what? And you say, yes, but I do a payment in the Trustlines network. And he says, that's okay, because after that, one of my friends is indebted to me with 100 euros. Here you have cash. In theory, that works. How secure is it? It's as secure as if you lend money to one of your friends in the real world. Most likely, they will put it back. If it's small amounts, sometimes they forget. But it could also be that friends vanish or are not friends anymore and not paying it back. But it's the same security properties that you're having here. It's a bit better if you build it on a blockchain, because then you have a notary and have better accounting for what has been lent. And the question is, what happened to the idea? We don't know. At least the company Ripple is not executing on this anymore. They're now building backend infrastructure for banks and not building a system that can be used by end users. But it's our plan. We want to take this actually very old idea, it's also used in the Havala network and probably thousands of years old, and build it on the Ethereum platform. And the Trustlines network is two things. It's a platform that lives on the Ethereum blockchain, as well as a mobile application, which makes it easy to access the platform. And the unique properties of this mobile payment application compared to other mobile payment applications is that it's so easy to get started. You don't need to register. You don't have to have an ID. You don't need a bank account. You don't need to have an account with an exchange or crypto tokens. Don't even need to deposit money. It's as easy as downloading an application, a mobile application, And you join the network by creating a trust line with a friend who's already connected to the network. And after that, you can already start sending and receiving payments. It's very easy. So applications. Obviously, one of the main applications is payments, but who would benefit most? There's approximately 2 billion unbanked or underbanked people worldwide. And we don't know why that is. We've been told that it's because banks cannot make a profit on them when giving out accounts. But nonetheless, these people often have smartphones, and the smartphone penetration is skyrocketing. And we think there's quite some potential there to get these people as users of such a system and see significant adoption. And another important application is peer-to-peer fiat-to-crypto exchange. So, nowadays, if you want to buy crypto tokens, you mostly have to open an account with an exchange, or there was something like local bitcoins. But there you need to meet people in the real world. Here, with Trustlines, how would it work? If Alice wants to buy Ether and Dave wants to sell Ether, and they don't know each other, what Dave can do is he can list some Ether or an offer for Ether with a smart contract, which is a decentralized exchange on the Ethereum blockchain. And if Alice likes the offer, she can take it. The smart contract will send her the Ether if she just trusts on network payment to Dave. If there's a pass and she can do the payment, they're all set. They're done. Dave has sold the tokens, has now some trust on network credit with one of his friends. And, well, this solves the dependency on centralized exchanges. That's access to crypto tokens for people without a bank account. And what it requires that there's people on the network willing to sell Ether. But they can set their own price, so that becomes a profitable idea for them at some point. Bonus for us, it's very important that we can do this because we want to have a user experience where the people can use the platform and use the mobile app without having to buy crypto tokens to pay for the gas in the Ethereum system. So when they join the system, the mobile application automatically will buy Ether to pay for the transaction that it does in the future. And other than nice things is then if you can buy Ether that way, you can exchange that for any other crypto tokens on the platform, and especially get access to all the applications, to all the dApps on the Ethereum platform without having to buy crypto tokens at a centralized exchange. As easy as downloading an app, connecting to a friend who's already in the network. It's very easy. And there's, well, quite some other applications. Basically, you can have most of the applications that you also have on the that we otherwise have in the Ethereum blockchain. Most of them you can also build based on this kind of money. Okay, let's go briefly in the technical implementation. From the architecture side, it looks like that we have a set of smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain, and then we have the mobile application. And in the middle, there's relay servers. We need them because neither in the mobile application nor on the blockchain we can discover a path between the people because we need to do a graph search. That's not doable on the Ethereum blockchain and not viable to do on the mobile application either. So we need to have like a federation of servers or services which help to discover this path. And for the platform itself, it doesn't host one currency. It's a platform to host multiple currencies. So you can think about, it could be like the US dollar, euro, whatever fiat currency, Trustline currency network. It could be gold or crypto tokens, commodities. It can be self-invented currencies like beers or time, whatever you can account for. You can set this up as a network on the Trustlines network platform. And you can also customize these. So you can customize properties like if there can be interests in trust lines, how credit lines can be changed over time, if it's a closed group of users, or if it's open to the public, anyone can participate. And the important thing is that these currency networks are interoperable. That is, if you say participate in the euro network, you still can credit people or send payments to people in the US dollar network. And it works, again, by using this decentralized exchange. Basically, during such a transfer, Ether is bought as an exchange, transferred, then sold at the other exchange from the other currency, and credited to the user there. So that's basically how it works. And it's, from a user perspective, that's all opaque. So the user doesn't see that it's complex. He doesn't have to deal with Ether during that, and it's just one atomic transaction on the Ethereum blockchain. That's basically, in such a network, that's a set of trust lines, and here we look at the account which represents such a trust line. That's the relation, the bilateral account between two people in a trust line. I just want to show you that we are very amazed that we can fit in all the information that we need within one 32-byte word size of the EVM. Because if we needed, say, 2 words, then basically that would immediately double the gas cost. So if you have the transfer Alice Bob, Bob Charlie, then it's 2 accounts that need to be updated. And here, so we have 2 S stores. If we could not fit it in 32 bytes, we would have 4 S stores, and it would be double the cost, gas-wise. Okay, on interoperability, it's kind of ERC20 compatible. It's a bit different, so balance off, your balance over all trust lines could be negative. So here, balance off is how much you can spend based on the credit lines that you have. That's always positive, or 0. Transfer, usually when you transfer through the system, you need to call the smart contract transfer function with a path along which the transfer happens. If you want to call it like you do in the ERC20 standard, then you need to pre-register the path between the sender and the recipient. But with this clumsy workaround, it also works. The other ERC20 methods work as expected. Then for better interoperability, there's also something like we call governance hooks. That is the features of a trust line, the credit line limits, as well as the interest rate. The ability to update these, you can delegate this to a smart contract, which then governs the trust line. And this helps to build more sophisticated applications, like, for example, a loan application, where you would require that, or would expect, that the interest rate doesn't change over time and that the credit line isn't reduced until the due date. It's just an example. You can use that to build all kinds of advanced applications. Okay, one other important thing is fees in the system. We have mandatory fees, which is the fees for the transactions on the Ethereum platform, as well as to incentivize the relay servers. And then there's fees that we use to make certain transactions more expensive than others, basically to level out the trust lines in the network. You don't want to exhaust some trust lines while others are not used, but you want to level this out. You want to have as few imbalances in the network as possible. And if we add these fees and then have a pathfinding algorithm which tries to find the cheapest path, that is, it has few hops, it doesn't add too much new imbalance to the system, then that might be the cheapest one, and that's the one proposed, and that helps to level out the balance in the network. Okay, but scaling the system, there's 2 sides to it. We need to find users, and if we find users, we need to make sure that the system actually can deal with many users. So how would we try to see adoption of the system? So we assume that for all the people that you know who have actually crypto tokens, there's probably 10 guys who are interested in the technology but have been too lazy to actually open an account with an exchange and buy crypto tokens. But here, they would have a very easy way to get hands-on blockchain technology, but because they just need to download an app and say, get a credit line, or sorry, a trust line by one of you guys. Another target group is complementary currency users. There's I think, 4,000 communities, complementary currency communities worldwide. They have some issues they need to coordinate, they need to have governance, they have community boundaries when doing payments, and this system would solve some of their issues. And then there's countries like Venezuela, for example. They would be happy if they could do their accounting in US dollars, right? We also think about having a referral reward mechanism to incentivize early adopters of the system if they onboard more users to the system, but we're not settled on this. So that's for scaling the user base, our ideas around this. And for scaling the technology, we need sharding, definitely, so that we can host many accounts on the Ethereum blockchain, but we also need the Raiden network to do the actual transfers for significant everyday payments if there's significant user base. And therefore, the Raiden network and the Trustline network, they kind of go hand in hand. The Trustline network depends on the Raiden network. And we obviously don't know how we can scale the system to 123 million users. We're not sure about this, but well, let's try. So to recap, it's a very old idea, but we think it's powerful. We built it on an Ethereum platform, and we try to build it in a way that it's very easy to adopt the system. And hopefully, my initial excitement about blockchain technology, that we can see transition of significant amounts of everyday payments to the blockchain technology, maybe this can come through with this technology. For the project status, we're currently developing this at Brainbot. And we have a working prototype. We use this already. We use this like every day in our company for build splitting mostly. Yeah, we have a website. And if you're interested to read more in our white paper, join our Slack, get in touch somehow. Thank you.